And so in this activity, you're going to be relating graphical features and the characteristics of the derivative of those functions. It's the start of what's going to be an investigation portfolio of several types of graphical features. In this activity, we're only going to be looking at three things. The first thing you need to relate is the characteristic of the derivative when the graph is at a turning point. And so stick with parabolas. That's all we need to do is just a second degree equation for this activity. And as you can see, I have a turning point here when x is equal to 2. Now these get called different things. In this case, the turning point is a minimum. In other words, the graph is coming down, down, down. It reaches its minimum here, and then it continues to go back up. So a turning point, sometimes called a max or a min, or maximum or a minimum, depending on which it is. And it is an example of a critical point. Okay, so a max or a min and a turning point is an example of a critical point. And so the first thing for you to investigate is to find out what the characteristic of a derivative is when the graph reaches a turning point, a maximum or a minimum. Now keep in mind that the derivative is basically the slope function, or the function that tells you the slope. Now the second thing, or the second two things that you need to investigate, is relating the characteristic of the derivative to the graph when the graph is decreasing or when the graph is increasing. And once again, you can stick with just a parabola. And in this case, the graph is decreasing. That means it's going down as x increases on an interval all the way from negative infinity to 2. And so when x is greater than negative infinity, or x is less than 2, this graph has a decreasing interval. And so what are the characteristics of the derivative of that graph on that interval? Similarly, because it's a parabola, when x is going from 2 all the way up to positive infinity, so when x is greater than 2 and x is less than infinity, this graph has an increasing interval. I want to know what the characteristic of the derivative is when this graph is increasing.